Okay, what's up? Y'all doing all right? Y'all good? It sounds like I'm about to do a comedy special, right? I wish I was really good at like setting up the joke or whatnot. I would make like a Woodstock joke, but I don't know much about like Woodstock. But I do know it's a bunch of white people in the farm, so there's my Woodstock joke for the day. I can go. Bye. But it's so good to be with y'all. I am blessed to be here. Like, I like to walk around a little bit when I'm talking. So first things first, let me, okay, I did start my time. So I'm incredibly grateful to be here. Usually when I go on the road and talk to people, I'm talking about books and things like that, talking about writing and all of those things. Sometimes I'm preaching. I'm not preaching today. But what I want to do is simply tell you a little bit about how I became a writer and a minister, and hopefully you can find yourself and your voice and your power as well. It's cool? We good with that? Y'all, it's 2023. The world is like dying, everybody dying, all stuff happening. We need a little hope and a little inspiration, right? Cool? All right. So, grab a moment in your mind right now. Don't have to be hard. Just grab any moment in your mind. Don't try too hard. Think about a moment. Maybe you were younger, some years ago. Maybe it was years ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. Grab that moment in your mind. You got it? Everybody got that moment? All right, you got that moment? Everybody got it? Cool. All right. Now think about where you are today. This moment where we are presently here together in North Carolina, Statesville, right? Statesville, North Carolina, on a Saturday. It's hot and muggy. We here together. Now think about this in a timeline in between those two moments. And I'm going to tell you there are two things that have happened to all of us. Everybody you know, everybody you're going to meet, everybody that's going to live, that's going to breathe, that's going to die, and leave behind something better. Two things have happened. Number one, our hearts have been broken. And number two, it has done something for us. Number one, our hearts have been broken. Number two, it has done something for us. Let me tell you a little bit about my heartbreak, right? July 2009. 2009, I'm in South Carolina. I'm a young kid playing football, and I got a friend named David Patton who plays for the New Orleans Saints at the time. He's an amazing dude from South Carolina. Took me under my wing since he was 13 years old. Took me under his wing since I was 13 years old. He came to my football game, right? Came all the way from New Orleans. Came to my football. Well, actually, he's living in Columbia at this time. Done with football. Came to my football game, first football game ever. And you want to know what I did? Guess what I did? I'm a young football player. What y'all think I do? Huh? I balled out. Somebody said balled out? Okay, I know y'all love football. I did not fumble. Come on. You really think I'm going to fumble? Okay, touchdown. Somebody said touchdown, right? I did. Okay. They kicked the ball off. Pow! Kicked the ball off, right? The ball scrambles a little bit. My boys move out the way. I pick up the football. I go to the right, go to the left, go to the right again. 95 yards later, I take it to the touchdown, right? Woo! Cool, everybody's celebrating. We hype. Go back to my guy. He's like, hey, Chief, you did it, baby. And I did it. That was a great, incredible moment for me because July 19, 2009, Sunday morning, the sun was bright. Me and my cousins was headed to church. And I hear, oh, no. My head slams to the right. I close my eyes. And I hear a scream for like 1 second. I open my eyes, two of my cousins outside of the car. Two of them got thrown from the car. I get out the car, my cousin's bleeding. First time I ever see a human being bleed like that. I go, and my cousin, the other girl, she has no pulse. One of my other cousins is sitting around the other side of the car. We scramble, we scramble, we scramble. My cousin bleeding out, he's bleeding out and all these things, right? Then the ambulance get there, time passed by. The ambulance picked me up. This is a month before I, take the kickback. The ambulance picking me up. My cousin get airlifted. My other cousin, a young girl, she goes to the ambulance, goes to the hospital. I'm in the ambulance ride, right? And y'all want to know what I asked the ambulance? Here I am in the ambulance ride. Anybody seen Friday Night Lights? Booby Mouse. I'm in the ambulance like, am I going to be able to play football? Am I going to be able to play football? Get to the hospital. First person I see is the same man who came and saw me play. He rubs my face with a tenderness that I've never felt before. And he says, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Where I come from in South Carolina, St. Matthews, South Carolina, there are 3 things that every young kid lives with where I come from. It's called the corridor of shame. Shout out to the baby. I got 2 babies back home. I love babies. I really do. There are 3 things that every young kid lives with where I'm from in South Carolina. A small town, 1 main light, the railroad tracks separate one end of the town to the next, the black side of the town to the white side of the town. 3 things every kid live with that I'm from: desperation, loneliness, and anger. And it was those 3 things that I felt when a month before my book comes out in 2021, I'm laying in my bed and I get the call that the same man who rubbed my face and the same man who came to see me play was killed in a motorcycle accident. Funny thing how life works, you know? You get inspired, you create friendships and memories, and then in an instant, like Joanne Didion says, life changes in an ordinary instant. Anybody read Year of Magical Thinking? She has that line, life changes in an ordinary instant. In an instant, life is different. Funny thing about that relationship is that there's one thing that David told me when I was a young kid that I've never forgotten ever in my life. We're working out every year he comes home. At this time, I'm playing at Clemson University. We working out every time he comes home. And he tells me something that I'll never forget as a young kid, as a youngin' just trying to make it, living with desperation, loneliness, and anger that every American lives with. Every single one of us. Our heartbreak is somewhere traced back to desperation, loneliness, and anger. And that's really one of the things that's happening in the country right now, is that we are desperate, we're lonely, and we're angry, and we don't know what to do with it, and the country makes it very hard to deal with it and get free of it, right? So it's one thing David told me that I never forget. David told me this. He said, where you come from, young boys don't make it out, but you're going to make it out because you got something that's different. Where you come from, young boys don't make it out, but you're going to make it out because you got something different. And so here I am, a month before my book comes out. David is dead. I'm in my house. My wife is asleep. My son is asleep. My daughter is asleep. And I begin to write. And it reminded me back the moment a few years ago, you know, I'm at the top of my game at Clemson University, end up leaving Clemson, going to Western Carolina, on the other side of Carolina. Anybody with Western Carolina, folks? Y'all, I hate Colorway. I'm just going to be real. Oh, my God. I was hoping nobody in here knew where Colorway was. God have mercy. Y'all, this is not even a part of my talk, But can I just interject that, like, Cullowhee is maybe one of the coldest, darkest, loneliest places I've ever been. If you ain't never, but they do got O'Malley's wings, which the wings in O'Malley's is pretty good, and they got them like fried Oreos. I don't know if they still got that spot with the fried Oreos. But if you're gonna go to North Carolina, do not go to Cullowhee. Cool? Stay in Statesville. So here I am, a young kid at the top of my game, very inspired, but also a young kid that's immature. And I'm at Western Carolina 5 games into the season. The same boy that takes back the kick when his inspiration comes and makes it to Clemson University, walks on to Clemson, gets put on scholarship, ends up starting that corner, is now at Cullowhee, North Carolina, in a 1-bedroom apartment at the top of the hill. 5 games into the season, I walk away from football. One of the most heartbreaking moments in my life. I'm at the top of the hill by myself. And at this time, my wife, who's my girlfriend at the time, goes off to the military, goes to the Air Force. And here I am trying to get back to Clemson University. This is how I became a minister and writer. Everybody tracking? We good? We locked in? All right, we locked in? All right, cool. I ain't boring y'all, right? All right, boo. Cool. Y'all still hate Cullowhee, North Carolina? All right, cool. I'm just making sure y'all paying attention. Paying attention. What did I do when my inspiration came to the football game? Y'all really paying attention. I like y'all. Okay, so here I am in North Carolina, quit football. My wife, who's my girl at the time, goes off to the military. And I'm in my 1-bedroom apartment by myself. And at Clemson, here I am in 2013, about to have the best season of my life. And I'm now transferred, and I'm lonely, and I'm desperate again, and angry again. And we're playing Georgia the first game that year. And I'll never forget looking at my dogs ride around on the bus, coming down the hill, and I turned the game off and cried the rest of the night. A few months later, I'm sitting in my 1-bedroom apartment again, walk away from football. And my wife goes off to the military, and what I began to do was this. I would sit in my room every morning and every evening, open up my laptop and begin to write and tell my wife about, who's my girl at the time, about everything I was going through as a young man. Now, if you want to know what desperation looks like, at this moment, let me tell you what I was doing. I was writing these letters. They were like 6 to 8 pages, type pages, single space. Any English teachers in here? Anybody teach English? Anybody teach school? Any teachers? Where my teachers at? Can we get a hand for our teachers real quick? Just shout out to our teachers. Any librarians in the house? This is not really a house. This is like outside. Any librarians outside right now? All right, let's give our hands to the librarians and the teachers. Shout out to y'all. That thing that I was writing would get an absolute F for craft, but would get an A for description and setting. And learning how to tell the story that's inside of here when you got nothing else to lean on. And it was then for those 2.5 months where I'm writing by myself, day in and day out, telling her everything that I was feeling, that I began to become a writer. It was then describing what it was like to be angry at my family for feeling like they disowned me that I learned how to talk about interiority. It was where I described the almost mile walk and 400 feet of elevation from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill and walking by myself in the quad, trying to figure out how to live life, where I learned the power of story arc. It was telling her about everything that I was thinking about my past and my present and the future that I wanted for myself, that I learned how to talk about dialogue and character and the world outside of you. And what I found out is that little by little, I began to build a world for somebody else who wasn't experiencing it. And it was the world that was inside of me. And really, That's the real true gift of writing, is that we give people the world inside of us as a sacred gift to experience and to be transformed by. And so, shift years later, my boy is dead, and I go back to writing, trying to build the world. A month after that, my book comes out, and I go through one of the busiest times of my life. And it's like, yo, bro, you made it out. You made it. You traveling the world. You're giving keynotes all over the place. You made it. You made it. You made it. And what I didn't realize is that, like, all the making it that I was doing, it was actually undoing my own heart and breaking it little by little. December 2021. Y'all good? As a kid, my granddaddy had a piano he would play in the house. He had a store across the street. Let me try and describe my place that I grew up a little bit. Red brick house my grandma lived in, single-story house. Granddaddy built it in the 60s. My granddaddy is a veteran of the Korean War, the Korean conflict. He had this store in his yard that the people would come to who would travel, black people who would go to Chicago and New York and Baltimore during the Great Migration. They would always come back down south to my granddaddy's store to find home. Granddaddy had this store over there in the house here. And if you're there today, you know, there's cars everywhere, abandoned cars. The store has nobody in it. It's only a concrete building. Well, there's a piano in that building that Granddaddy used to play. And Granddaddy used to love playing the piano, and sometimes the keys would be missing. He would still play it and still play it. And like, he loved the song by B.B. King, "The Thrill Is Gone." He would always tell this story about, hey, when I was younger, I was driving around James Brown. Now, I ain't never believed my granddaddy drove around no James Brown. My granddaddy was a storyteller. If my mama called him a storyteller, if I was a storyteller like my granddaddy, my mama would call me a liar. But he's a storyteller, right? For the purposes of this conversation. Granddaddy told a story about James Brown. Granddaddy had this piano where the keys didn't work, and I remember him playing the keys, and sometimes his hand would miss and things like that. And it taught me that sometimes, you know, even if the keys is missing, we still play because we can still make music out of broken things. 5 years before 2021, Granddaddy got dementia. Gets lost in 2019. And I'm back home in 2021, about 2-3 months after my book comes out. I'm busy on the road. And Granddaddy is now at the back end of his dementia struggle. And Granddaddy tells me he can't really talk. Grandma tell me like, hey, can you get him down to eat? So I go to get Granddaddy down to eat, start rubbing his head. He got this little tick about him. Tick, 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 right? I begin to rub Granddaddy's head and start to tell him and whisper things to him. Like, what's up, Granddaddy? Hey, you gotta sit down and eat. Gotta sit down and eat. And if you know anything about dementia, one of the most troubling and damaging things about dementia is that, like, it robs you of not just your ability to, like, remember and to have cognition, but it robs you of the beauty of the people that you did so much for and gave them so much. And it robs you of that relationship that you had with those people. And so I'm talking to Granddaddy, rubbing his head, kiss him on his head, get him down to eat, finish up my pig feet and rice. It's December. It's about to be January 1st. Anybody else eat pig feet and rice? My sister's like, hey, I'm tracking. Pig feet and rice, right? Driving back home after that meeting, my mama tell me that Granddaddy breathing hard. Granddaddy goes into the hospital. I mean, a few weeks later, Granddaddy goes into the hospital. I'm driving. My mama tell me he goes into the hospital and he doesn't come out. I get a call like, hey, Granddaddy is like breathing real hard. He probably ain't gonna make it through the night. I go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. I look at Facebook. I see a video of my granddaddy dancing like he always do. And my brother says, "Goddamn cut sugar. Rest in peace, granddaddy." My granddaddy passes away, right? Week after that, my aunt passed away. A week before granddaddy passed, his oldest daughters passed. And in these weeks, I'm like traveling still on the road, busy. And then I began to have panic attacks, right? Had my first one in March of 2022. The next one in May of 2022, I was on stage with somebody, had a big old panic attack. I'm glad I ain't about to have one right now. Because golly, anybody know anything about panic attacks? When you got the mic in your hand, you do not want your heart rate to increase. In 2022, I have another panic attack. Then the fall comes. In 2022, I have another one. I have another one. Then a nervous breakdown. And then I get to a breaking point where I'm like, all right, I got to get me a therapist. So I get a therapist, get a clinical psychologist. And one of the first things he asked me was this. He was like, "Dante, what do you really want from this therapy?" And I pause. And I tell him, I said, the thing I really want is this, bro. Is that all I want is just to love the life that I got and to accept it for all it is and all it's not. And that hopefully that the person that's inside of here would not just be a figment of my imagination, but would be my real life. And he tells me this. He says, "Dante, I can't promise to heal your heartbreak, but what I can promise is I'm going to give you something that's going to help you address it." 2022 happens. I'm going through all this death, all this struggle, still the young kid who's living with desperation, anger, and loneliness. And I'm working on this big old project, work real hard on it, and then it gets canceled, right? Gets canceled. Every morning, I go to the coffee shop at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. at the coffee shop, writing. Every morning, 9 a.m. without fail. Any early risers? All right, cool. All right, anybody read James Clear, Atomic Habits? If you haven't, you should read it. All right, shout out to you. You know that book's life-changing, right? So I'm showing up at the coffee shop 9 a.m. every morning to write. I get this news that like, hey, this project you were working on, is canceled. So I called my friend that night. It was a Monday. Turned the project in at 11. By 7 p.m., I get a call, and the person who called me to tell me that the project was canceled gets on the call, and they say nothing for like 5 seconds. Anybody who calls you and say nothing for 5 seconds, this is about to be a bad phone call. It ain't about to be like, "Happy birthday, we love you, you're amazing, your star about to shine real bright." So I get the call, and the next morning I'm at the coffee shop at 9 a.m. the next morning, back to my computer, writing again. Writing on my computer, trying to figure out how to deal with every moment in between of what the heartbreak can do to Dante Stewart. How the heartbreak led Dante to the page. How the heartbreak led Dante back to himself. How the heartbreak led Dante to run. How the heartbreak tried to put Dante back together again. So here I am at 9 a.m. at the shop, trying to do something to write. I get on a call with my agent again, and we start talking about this project I want to work on. Start writing it, working on it. And then I have a copy of Homer's The Odyssey, right? Any writers in the room, y'all, you carry your books with you all the time, everywhere you go. You go to the airport, you got a book. You go to the bathroom, you got a book. You go to a basketball game, a sports game, you got a book. You go to the mall, you got a, you drive in your car, you probably got a, okay, cool. So here I am with my books, copy of Homer's The Odyssey. And as I'm beginning to work on this project, I opened up this book and just started like reading in it. It's a used copy of Homer's The Odyssey that I got from a used bookstore a few years ago. Open up this book to read and things like that. And I come across this annotated part in the book that it was like serendipitous, right? Here I am dealing with all this heartbreak, all this loneliness, all this grief, all this despair. And I open up Homer's The Odyssey. And I open it up and I flip and there's green lines in it. And the person put 5 exclamation points on it. So, and then they actually, interestingly enough, they had a sticky note in it. So they gave me a treasure, at this used bookstore. It was a treasure. So then I began to read the annotated lines, and it says, even his grief is a joy to the one who remembers all that he wrought and all that he endured. Even his grief is a joy to the one who remembers all he wrought and all he endured. And I began to write about all that I wrought and all that I endured. Coming from being a boy in South Carolina in the corridor of shame, going from the corridor of shame to Clemson University, going from Clemson University to Western Carolina, quitting football, going from quitting football to getting married and moving out to California, going from moving out to California to going into the white evangelical church, becoming a preacher and a teacher, going from being a young black boy in the white space who assimilates and who becomes a weapon in white space, who begins to be a weapon not just for white people, but always against black people, begin to write about how the young boy sees Philando Castile and Alton Sterling get murdered, and white people in the white church linked arms with Donald Trump, and the disillusionment that the young boy began to feel. I began to write about how, the young boy leaves and finds James Baldwin and begins to read The Fire Next Time, and The Fire Next Time begins to change him. And then I write about how The Fire Next Time leads the boy to believe that he can be a writer. And then the boy leaves the white church and goes out to California again and meets another writer named Vanessa Diffenbaugh. And Vanessa Diffenbaugh and the boy talks, and Vanessa was like, you can really write, so you should try and write. And then that boy begins to write and write and write and write and write and write. And here he is, 9 a.m. after all this disappointment, writing again about all he wrought and all he endured, thinking about his 2 children who are at the house, who are the recipients of everything that he wrought and everything he endured, thinking about his wife and the ways that his wife began to love him and loved him to the very end in ways that changed him and held him down even when he couldn't hold himself, just because he wants other people to go back and see everything they endured and begin to tell that story. So here I am writing, 9 a.m. I'm going to have to change because I got somewhere else to be too. Later on in the day, I'm going to have to change because it's kind of hot out here. That's not in the talk. So here I am writing at 9 a.m. researching. And I found this young lady, 1982, by the name of Takako Mamiya. In 1982, she comes out with this album entitled Love Trip. It's a beautiful album. On the cover, she's sitting down. It's like a white background. It's beautiful, beautiful big old bubble letters that's like reminiscent of the 80s. She got big old puffy hair. She's a Japanese pop singer. And she comes out with this album, Love Trip, in 1982. And on the album in 1982, there's a song called What a Broken Heart Can Do. As I'm researching and writing, I look up this album, begin to read the lyrics. And she writes in the first stanza about being seen but unseen, walking in the world and feeling unfelt. And she comes out with this album. And after the album comes out, she completely disappears. Brilliant album, 1982. A time of great music. The 70s happened. Music becomes the soundtrack of the soul, becomes the protest of the nation. She comes out with this song, What a Broken Heart Can Do. I listened to her read the lyrics, print them off, research her name, Takako Mamiya, found out that she walks away from music and she completely disappears. And here I am, listening to this song at 9 a.m., What a Broken Heart Can Do, reading Homer's The Odyssey, thinking about everything I've gone through, and telling myself, I will not disappear no matter what wants me to disappear, because disappearance for any one of us is not safety. Disappearance is death. My professor told me something back at Clemson. I got cleared to graduate the day before graduation at Clemson University. She told me I got 4 things that she never wanted me to forget. We actually talked the other week, and she said she was so mad that I got cleared the day before graduation because after Western Carolina, I went back to Clemson to finish my degree because I wanted to finish what I started. Because so many of us, when our hearts are broken, one of the hardest things to do is to go back to the places of heartbreak and have the courage to show up again. And so here I am back at Clemson, got cleared to graduate the day before graduation. She tells me I got 4 things that she never want me to forget. She says, you got an inquisitive mind, a compassionate heart, a whole lot of edge, and you love to question. An inquisitive mind, a compassionate heart, a whole lot of edge, and you love to question. And I'll never forget those words, because I keep those words with me every single day that I try to heal broken human hearts and tell human beings that your heartbreak is real and has done something for you, and you can do something with it. So, gather a moment in your mind, right? Don't try too hard. Maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 50 years ago. Grab a moment in your mind. Don't try too hard. And now think about where you are today. Right here, right now. 2 things have happened to each one of us. Our hearts have been broken, and we've done something with it. Thank you.
So you're sitting here this morning, and you've heard Dante talking, and you've thought about that moment in your life, and I wonder what you're thinking, and I wonder what you're feeling about that moment in your life. And I wonder if you're thinking about the heartbreaks that you've known. And I wonder if you've done the best to cover them and shove them away. And I wonder if you wish they'd never come to pass. And I wonder if you wished you'd never been lonely. And I wonder if you wish you'd never been desperate. And I wonder if you wish you had never been angry. And here you sit this morning at the Wild Goose Festival, turning deep inside. Pathways are chosen, years go by. Feelings get frozen and tear ducts run dry. It's time to move on now, so I'll try to forget all the ways I've been battered and bruised, all the rage and regret. Where do I begin? And how do I even start to walk across that long, long bridge on the road to forgiveness and the healing of the heart. I know you. There's a room that's been damaged in the house of your soul. So you try not to go there, where it's lonely and cold. You blacken the windows. You pretend you don't care. And you seal all the doorways. You pretend it's not there. Where do you begin? How do you even start to walk across that long, long bridge on the road to forgiveness and the healing of the heart? And we say to a broken nation, and we say to a broken people, and we say to broken structures and broken hopes and broken dreams, how did we get here? Standing face to face on this bridge that could crumble beneath us. Such a dangerous place. So we reach out our hands now, so fragile, so frail. Oh God, are you with us? And what if we fail? Here's where we begin. And here is where we start to walk across that long, long road on the way to forgiveness and the healing of the heart.